Resume recording. Here we are. So welcome. I am talking today about flourishing at work and flourish. So flourishing sort of largely conceived at work, and flourishing for my people who work in academia more specifically. So, and I'm going to work on mirroring my screen here. Which I can do in just a second. That's how I do that. Mirror. So I'm going to mirror my screen and do a little drawing, because that's more fun than doing some other things, right? Because we're all probably pretty sick of staring at a PowerPoint. It's just my working assumption. So here we have my fun little squid screen on my Chromebook. So talking about well-being and performance, but not in the sense, so first of all, if you cannot see my screen, you can't, because I haven't started sharing it. That would be the reason. Okay. Now, if I share it, can you see a blank white screen? Excellent. All right. So talking about well-being and performance and success, but not in that, ooh, the hustle is real kind of way, but in a more sort of whole integrated person way, where performance and success are frameworks and criteria that you set, and where you feel good, so you do well, right? I want it to be parallel, feel good, so do good, but no, we can't do that, that's bad. So we want to do well emotionally, socially, professionally, but not because we're sacrificing our well-being. And I think that in a lot of professions, and definitely in the academy right now, where everybody is struggling under some kind of budget cut, and COVID has required, tumbling upside down our work patterns, and oversight of institutions just gets more and more. So there's more reporting, there's more stuff, there's always more. And there's the invitation just to keep doing more. And I want us to take a pause, hit pause, and think about what it means to do well, so that the performance that we're engaged in and we care about is something that resonates with us. So I'm going to invite you to think, and you can put in the chat if you like, on like a 1 to 8 scale. How well are you doing? Is your well-being a 1, like hanging on by fingernails, or is your well-being a 10? I'm here, I'm doing great, I'm hitting my keyboard and putting a whole bunch of C's in the chat. Okay, grabbing 4 at 2 and 3 at 1. Okay, so we are not, I haven't seen anything above 5 yet. This is, I see this a lot. People feel it. Oh, we got a 6. Excellent. So what I'm going to invite us to think about is a framework that comes from the University of Pennsylvania's Authentic Happiness Lab. That is a research-based way to talk about well-being. And that's why I have my screen here. And in honor of the Olympics, I will draw this as 5 interconnected circles, because they are interconnected. And this is called the PERMA model of well-being. And is that even showing up? Dear sweet, sweet, sweet technology, why are you doing this to me? La, da, da, da. Just give me 1 more second. Stop sharing. I'll share again. And we will return to, there we go. Now I can share, and you should be able to see what I am doodling on my fun little screen. Okay, so the PERMA model of well-being, I think his name is Martin Seligman, at the University of Pennsylvania. And so this is positive emotions, which is a bit more quantifiable than happiness, right? Happiness is pretty subjective. Positive emotions, maybe you can count those during the day. The E stands for engagement. So this is being in flow, being, plugged in and engaged in what you're doing, being engaged in work that gives you as much energy as it requires from you, right? R stands for positive relationships, because we are social creatures and we need those in order to flourish. The M stands for meaning, which is interesting, because this is having a sense of purpose in your life and being able to identify what you are in service of, what you are in pursuit of. And the A stands for achievement. So this is, achievement is success, it is mastery and competence, it is getting the dopamine hit of hitting a goal and having it recognized both internally and externally. Yes, you did that, you did it well, because we need that. We need to know that we're doing well every once in a while. If you're involved in Sisyphean tasks where you keep rolling the rock to the top of the hill and it keeps rolling down on top of you, I mean, obviously that dings your sense of flourishing, that dings your well-being. So the theory of this model of well-being is both individual, community, and even national. There have been some studies on a very large scale that where people get to experience more positive emotions when they're surrounded by positive and loving and supportive relationships, when they're engaged in activities that give them energy, plug them in, when they believe in something bigger than themselves, and when they get to experience achievement, they do better than when all of those things are low, right? We want high feeling in all of those areas to feel like we're optimally flourishing. So I'll invite you just to think about your emotional life, your engagement in your work, your social network, the meaning you give to your work, and the achievement you experience. And let me know, like, does that impact your average score? If you parse well-being into 5 different sections, can you say, oh, okay, I'm doing well here, but maybe not so well here? Is there an area that jumps out at you? So my first question that I want you to answer in the chat is, of these 5 elements, which would be the one that if you could score a 10 out of 10 would make the biggest impact in your life right now? Meaning, excellent. Who else? Engagement, good. Positive emotions or meaning? Okay. Relationships, yeah. Engagement and achievement, ooh, goody, goody. Okay. Now they're all interconnected, right? Meaning and engagement, positive emotions. They're interconnected. So like if positive emotions are high, you're probably able to pull yourself up in some of these other areas. When achievement is high, maybe it's generating those positive emotions. Maybe it's giving you positive feedback on that meaning front. So what I want to do today, let's flip over my notes, is, okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second so that you can see moi. What I'm going to do today is spend a bit of time about talking about 3 of the elements of the PERMA model that I think show up most regularly when people come into coaching, for example. So I work a lot one-on-one with clients, and when people come in, sometimes they're talking about just achievement. Like, I need to get tenure, for example, or I need to get promoted to full. There's this project I have to finish, and I'm stalling out on it. And then we do a little bit of talking and discovering, and oh, I'm stalling out on it, maybe because the engagement bit is missing, maybe because the meaning element is missing. And so I'm going to talk a bit about engagement, meaning, and achievement. Just because talking about all five in one swoop, it's not going to work in an hour. So I'm going to think of engagement as, am I into it? And meaning is the, what does it all mean and signify, and why is it important? And achievement as, how am I doing, right? Am I into it? What does it mean and signify? And how well am I doing at it? Okay. So I could flip the order around. I could talk about positive emotions and relationships together, but these are the three that I think when you're involved in sort of the project-based work of an academic environment, whether it's a lab or a library or a classroom or a department, those are the things that crop up most frequently when I talk to people. So I'm going to start with engagement. I'm going to offer some synonyms here, or some ways to think about it, that are energy, flow, and ease. Okay, so I mentioned earlier, being fully engaged means, and if you know anything about the concept of flow by Michele Csikszentmihalyi, big long Hungarian last name that I habitually mispronounce, he talks about flow state as being where your skills and abilities are used really well. It's maybe a tiny reach, but it's not an impossible reach, right? So you're being well used, you're experiencing some positive feedback, and it gives you energy, right? You're absorbed in it because it is energizing in some way, shape, or form. And think about the opposite of that. Tasks, activities, interactions that suck the life out of you. And most jobs have some soul-sucking elements to them. Grading papers. I used to teach basic language, right? Like if I never had to look at a worksheet again, that probably would have been okay with me. But when are you engaged? So I'm going to invite you to think about times when you are fully engaged in your activity. You're enjoying your work. It's giving you at least as much as it takes from you when you look forward to returning to it. So I'm going to let you think for a minute, and I'll just put out a few ideas that maybe spark something for you. So is it in the classroom? Is it in a committee meeting? Is it at a professional conference with other specialists? Is it in a lab, in an archive? Is it reading a book? Is it sitting at your desk? Is it at the blank page? Is it one-on-one, or is it in groups? Is it teaching or learning? Is it facilitating or creating? Which part of your job makes you feel most alive and is most engaging for you? If there's a word that's magic for you there, whether it's one that I rattled off or one that comes to you and you want to share it, I'd love to see it, because it is so easy, because of negativity bias, to focus on the ick, right? Negativity bias, it lets the negative loom really large in our lives. And so identifying, oh, here's that gem is so important, in part because you can prime your brain to re-recognize it. Oh, here's the gem, here's the gem, here's the gem. But also, and this is part of what we do when we engage in the work of becoming our best selves, is we work on plans to, okay, how much of my time and effort and energy can I put towards the gem? And how much can I maybe carve away from the stuff that is more on the soul-sucking side of the spectrum? And we're never going to get to 100% beauty, grace, engagement, flow, and 0%, oh dear God, help me. But if we can move in that direction, we have to know where the direction is. And sometimes we don't recognize that, oh, part of my job is XYZ. And it's the why in that XYZ that really gives me meaning. And it would be okay for me to do more of that and offload X and Z, because once I can identify, oh, I'll put my hand up for that, right? You can opt in to the things that bring you joy, that bring you engagement, that make you feel plugged in. For me, it was the seminar room. It was the exchange of ideas with other smart people. That has been a constant. That is where I get energy. Creating learning with students, right? There's that trifecta, the learning together, making meaning together, doing it with students who are engaged, right? Knowing that, what does that tell you about engagement, tell you about maybe how to plan or point your efforts. Let me pick up my notes again. So what do we got here? Ooh, research and writing process, exactly. And so, and research and writing, you get energy from that. Where does accomplishment and that positive feedback come in, right? We're going to move into thinking about how engagement and meaning and accomplishment are tied together, but knowing what that engagement is so that you can create as many opportunities as possible to experience it, because we deserve that. The aha moments in class, somebody just typed in, when you see the light bulb go off for somebody, whether it's a colleague who you're explaining something to or a student who gets something and they get it and you're like, oh, yay, right? I have achieved something there. So the reason I'm talking about this, what I call an engagement audit, how much time do I get to spend doing this, is because that's one of the steps that I'm going to take people through. In mid-March, I'm starting a small cohort where we're going to take this model of well-being and we're going to operationalize each element of it for our professional and personal lives. There are activities and exercises and mindset shifts for all 5 of these that come from coaching, that come from positive psychology, where we work on shifting towards positive emotions when we need to, where we work on, oh, thank you so much for putting in mentoring. I love that. Where we work on an engagement audit, where we look at our calendar and we look at our commitments and say, how much of this fits into that engagement bucket and how much of it fits into the, oh dear God, help me bucket. And what agency do I have to shift, right? So that engagement audit is a step, and then there's accountability to, okay, now what do I do? Now what decisions do I make now that I have seen that, okay? So starting with engagement and flow and ease. I remember when I was, so a lot of you don't know who I am or what my story is. I was a tenured professor of German language and literature at Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas. And then my husband got a great job in Canada. And I, who evidently enjoy jumping off cliffs, said, sure, I'll give up tenure and move to a different country. That sounds like a great adventure. And so for the last 10 years, I've gone through a process of maybe falling in love with different parts of academia, maybe falling out of love, transitioning to different jobs, and then saying, no, I want to do something else. And so I retrained as a coach. And where was I going with that? There was a reason for this. Oh, meaning. Yes, meaning. So thinking about engagement and meaning, we get to, what does it all mean? Why am I doing this? And that's a fascinating question, because my area of expertise was 19th century German historical fiction. I joke now, this is not a growth industry. I didn't watch the Super Bowl this weekend, but I hear there was a halftime show and some ads. Like, that's all I heard. I don't even know who was playing, but I heard there's something about Eminem, Dr. Dre, and Bitcoin ads and crypto ads. Like, maybe if I had done crypto, I would have that would be meaning, because people would want it. I'm not sure people wanted 19th century historical fiction the way I wanted it. But what is the sense of purpose that your work connects to? And for some people, their faith tradition gives them that sense of purpose, right? that you are here because you are one of God's creatures, and that imbues everything you do with a certain sense of purpose. For those of us who are looking for work to be part of that purpose, it's sometimes hard to say, oh, well, why am I studying 19th century German historical fiction? What good is that doing to the world, for the world? And so the way to frame this, and this is good regardless of what you're up to, what am I in service of? I really think, and I've felt this personally, and am hearing it more and more from clients. I'm seeing it more and more from generations below, younger than me, right? If I'm sort of at the core of Gen X, I'm looking at Gen Z and millennials, and these younger people, and we're seeing it in the Great Resignation, right? People want to be part of something bigger than themselves that they can believe in. And I think it's a great invitation for us to say, what is my career, my time and effort in service of? So is it in service of critical thinking? Is it in service of education? Is it in service of the next generation? What am I in service of? Who am I in service of? What is the impact I want to have in the world? And I love this question because regardless of how many committees you lead or departments you chair or publications you have, deep in your heart, you know that that's not the impact, right? Impact is interpersonal, and maybe your scholarship is part of that impact, but it's the people who take it in and do something with it, right? So what is the impact you want to have in the world? And if the answer to that question doesn't leap out at you immediately, and I find that it often doesn't, because we're not asked this question very often, right? I approach this through play and reflection and metaphor. So I have what I call a Mad Libs exercise that I have people do. And I'll put this in the chat for you. Okay, and this is also, I mean, for those of you who are thinking about mentoring and whatnot, this is a fun mentoring exercise as well. So I don't know if you remember Mad Libs, but you have a blank and you have to put a type of word, type of syntactical element into that blank. So I do, I am the blank, and this is a metaphor, that or who does blank, and that's a thing, a verb. There's a verb there. For blank, a population, a group, an idea, a movement, right? Who are your people? So that blank, and that's your impact. So I am, let me see here. One of my very first clients 5 years ago, she came up with a great one. I am the river raft guide who helps graduate students navigate through the Grand Canyon of grad school so that they can succeed in their scientific endeavors. That's not verbatim, but that was her purpose statement. She had a lab, she did things, right? She was an accomplished scholar, but the thing that gave her meaning, her work meaning to her, was guiding graduate students through this rocky canyon, because she knew there were all sorts of places to run aground. And she knew that it was both scientific and interpersonal. And here's the way I'm going to do this so that I get people to the other end of the canyon and cataracts whole and in one piece and saying, woohoo, what a ride, right? So that notion of metaphor, frequently people come up with things like lighthouse or tree or Sherpa or shepherd, right? Those sorts of things. Those are very mentoring words. There are some people who want spotlight, right? Or billboard, or something that's like, hey, I have a message, come over here and look at it. So I'll plant that seed for you. And if somebody already has, like, oh, here's a metaphor that resonates with me, I'd love to see it, because a job title, yeah, I don't know. A job title doesn't always capture what we love about our job, what gives meaning to our work. Professor, associate, this, that, or the other, academic director of that, right? So what is it? Is it teacher? Is it tutor? Is it guide? Is it, right? And looking back to the moments that really engage this group, right? The aha moments in the classroom. Teacher's a great word. Is there a descriptive metaphor for that? The mentoring and advocating, right? Is that the Sherpa or the river guide? The creative element of it. Are you the builder? Are you the magician? Are you, right? Is there some alchemy that is involved in what you do? So this metaphor for your career is important, and I'm trying to weave the line of connection between all of these things. So engagement is what sparks you, and it sparks you because it's connected to this notion of what your career is really about for you at your core. And what I find most interesting about thinking about what you are at your core is that transition to achievement. So, ooh, hold on, I see somebody in the chat. I should have 27. Ooh, I'm the gardener who plants the seeds. Oh yes, exactly. Planting seeds. I don't know if any of you had to read the frog and toad stories, either when you were a young person or to the young people in your life, but there's a great frog and toad story where Toad plants a garden and stands out there and yells at them, "Seeds, why aren't you growing?" So what does it mean to be a gardener and to be patient and to water and fertilize, right? So thinking, what does achievement as a gardener or as a lighthouse or as a shepherd look like? What I find, and I'm curious if this resonates for you, is that our notions of achievement, our notions of success are handed down to us liberally by all sorts of entities, right? There's our families of origin. This is what success looks like, right? Doctor, lawyer, stay-at-home mom, whatever it is that your family of origin thought would be the pinnacle of achievement for you. Then there's your undergraduate and graduate school teachers. There's your dissertation advisor, if you went through that process, who maybe had a very, very clear notion of what success looked like and what it didn't look like. There's your discipline, right? What is a successful fill in the blank? A successful humanist, a successful social scientist, a successful librarian, a successful lab scientist, right? What does your discipline expect for success? And then your institution has very clear notions of success. And that's, oops, ooh, I just clicked a button. I do not want to do that. And so those notions of success that are handed to us at the institutional level, this is tenure and promotion. It's, yeah, where you show up on campus, who knows your name, right? Those notions of success are just out there for the taking. And we tend to adopt a lot of them completely uncritically, right? If we think about notions of success in most academic fields, there's some combination of teaching, service, research, professional activity of some kind, sometimes clinical activity of some kind. There are grants, publications, interactions with students, supervising students, right? All of those things make up your institution or your role's idiosyncratic recipe for career progression. And there are rewards attached to each of those things. But that is not the same as your definition of success. For me, anyway. So what are some of the definitions of success that you have inherited from those around you, whether it's family of origin or like the chair of your department right now? What are definitions of success that you're working with? I'm thinking of some of my clients right now where the highest success priority for them is dollar amount of grants, right? Very few things can hit that mark. That's what success looks like. The big grant, right? Other people, it's the big book. So what does success look like? Grants all the way, says somebody in the chat. What else do we hear from our environments? Maybe from your dissertation advisor way back when, from your students today. Like, what do people expect from you in terms of success? Or that maybe you've uncritically adopted? Yeah, to reproduce the pattern that you went through, right? So your dissertation director wants you to be like them. Your chair maybe wants you to be like them, right? And so parents, partner, like what does your partner want in terms of your success? Ooh, a small town where it was expected that little academic environment where everybody gets a PhD. The number of words written, absolutely, right? Yeah. And then we come home and there are other expectations. You're available to a partner, you're available to offspring. Maybe you need to be available to students or collaborators or colleagues, right? There's all sorts of notions of what other people expect from you in order to think that you are being successful, right? Having the degree, doing the work. What happens, and this happens, I think, frequently, or at least in my experience, people really notice this right around tenure. Like as they're putting together tenure documents or on the other side of that process, like, okay, so I've been on the merry-go-round and there's the brass ring and I have it, and yet I am still on the merry-go-round. And maybe the brass ring is just a brass ring. It's not gold. This is not, is this it? Right? Whereby we sort of circle back to meaning. Is this it? So when we are pursuing somebody else's notion of success for us, it just doesn't feel good, right?
Sorry, I'm just looking for the...
Somebody I think needs to mute themselves. Hearing something in the background. Okay, there we go. When we are pursuing somebody else's notion of success, we're not going to, okay, congratulations on the 30th anniversary of your dissertation defense. Yeah, what has it been all about? What do I want the next 5 years to be about? Is this all there is? And I'm inviting us to think about the notion that having your own definition of success that is, again, tied into where you're engaged, what you're in service of. So that even if you're still in the process of ticking off boxes that need to be ticked off institutionally, that you're working towards a definition of success where that achievement is the dopamine hit of, yes, I have done well by me, right? As opposed to doing well by everybody else, or by somebody else, or by my advisor, or by my chair, or by my dean. Doing well by me. So flip this around. Oh, wow, I have run through that stuff. Excellent. So I'm going to share my screen again. Oh, please, 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 let us have this work. Because I'm going to draw you a little picture. So share that, go there. So my little picture that I'm going to draw you has to do with alignment. All right, please tell me if you cannot see that. Let me find my magic pen again. So I think one or two of you may have seen this before from me. So I'm going to talk about this. You might be familiar with this pyramid as Diltz's logical levels. It's one model for it, but it has to do with sort of a social emotional hierarchy in a way of a person. And you can do this very sort of ego-centered, or what I'm going to do is translate it to our careers a bit. So we're going to put at the top of this pyramid your notion of success, accomplishment. Sometimes when I talk about this top of the pyramid, I talk about legacy, right, which can be sort of a big, scary word. But this has to do with where the meaning and achievement coincide, right? So what is your idiosyncratic definition of success? I used to work with somebody who was an associate dean of research who had this really clear statement that he wanted to be one of the premier cardiac researchers in the field of nursing in North America, right? So he had this notion of like, success for me would be if my reputation were this. I'll tell you what my notion of success is, the one that I'm pursuing right now, is I want to make coaching the norm in academia, because I believe that academia is full of subject matter experts who have been trained to be heads on sticks instead of fully integrated human beings who enjoy their work and enjoy their lives and bodies. And so I want to normalize coaching as one way to create culture change in academia. Now you will notice both in my friend's premier cardiac researcher notion of success and in my normalized coaching vision of success and achievement is there are not a series of checkboxes that will guarantee that to me, right? This notion of legacy and impact is a two-way street. It's, I'm putting stuff out there in the world, I'm putting my energy and time and interactions out into the world so that contribute and point in the direction of that success. But whether it happens or not is not entirely under my control. So this is big picture stuff. This is the meaning, right? Meaning and achievement coincide here. So I'll invite you to, make a note for yourself. What would my ultimate definition of success and achievement be for me? How would I know, ooh, yeah, that was all worth it. I did what I was meant to do, right? I did what I was put here to do. What a beautiful thought. So then, change the color here. We move down to this next level. I'll invite you to recognize my beautiful artistic talent while we're here. And we'll look at priorities. Yellow is maybe not the best color. Look at priorities. So we're talking about alignment. What are the priority activities, buckets of activities that feed into this notion of success? So if you define yourself as premier researcher in X, somebody who is bringing new insights into the practice of this field, somebody who trains graduate students to go do this, somebody who shepherds undergrads through 4 years of personal and intellectual growth, right? Whatever is that meaning plus achievement that coalesces to success for you, what types of activities create that? And so hopefully, This is where engagement comes in, right? But this is also where some roadmap planning begins. Because once you've articulated, oh, here's what success looks like, then making sure that the various parts of your career, the various parts of your work life are aligned with that vision of success. And engagement is one way to look at that alignment. And in the cohort program that I'm starting on March 14th, that's one way we'll do it. But the other is, like, what are the priority buckets of things that you should pay attention to? Is it publications? Does it have something to do with teaching? Does it have something to do with what we might call public scholarship, right? What are the types of things that you might want to do that feed into your notion of success? Because when we go down one more level, here's the plan again, then we break that down. And here's where we can start checking off boxes, right? So when people come to me and say, I need a book to get published, I believe you, you probably do. I need to publish a book in order to get tenure. Absolutely, let's go do that. But where does that thing, right? Is publishing the book, is that like your goal for the next year or two? Because it isn't this, right? The book is not the overall achievement and meaning of your career. The book, the grant, the whatever, it's a type of activity, right? So maybe it's here, and it's a goal to work on. It's something you can check off a list. But if that thing that you're checking off a list isn't integrated into this larger notion of, I am pursuing my well-being in my career because I know what achievement and success mean for me. I'm engaged in work. I find meaning in work. I have a community of people around me that supports that. And in part because of that, and in part creating that, I can access positive emotions when I need to, and they're there for the taking, right? It isn't just a morass of ick. So I'm going to stop my share. So you will see that they're, again, slightly out of order. We have this PERMA model of well-being from UPenn, which I've been working with it for a while with my clients, and I really like it in terms of, can we boil down a few things to pay attention to as we are planning our careers, as we're figuring out, as we're making decisions, right? This is a decision-making framework. Is it moving me in the direction of a more whole and integrated person, or is it moving me in the direction of negativity, languishing, right? All of those things. So that is the pep talk I wanted to share with you. And because I've mentioned it twice, I want to show you what I'm doing upcoming, and then I will open for some questions. So I'm involved in a bit of an experiment with a company called Maven. So Maven is a cohort-based course teaching platform. And there are academics on here. There's a group of artificial intelligence researchers from MIT who do like a weekend thing that's cool. There are entrepreneurs of various types. There are a few coaches. And I am on March 14th starting a small cohort-based program. And I can show you. And the syllabus is not beautiful at the moment because I spent a lot of time working on the landing page, which I think I might need to go to like an incognito window for you to see it. But so it's at maven.com. You can search for my name. You can go to courses and find Flourishing at Work in Academia. And we spend 7 weeks. Opening week is getting to know each other, kickoff, setting intentions, right? Figuring out what's going to make exploring our well-being at work successful for us. What do we want to get out of it? Then we'll spend a week on each of these elements with reflections, with activities, with some accountability. And then we'll wrap it up with celebration and more accountability if that's important to you. And what I wanted to do, so this is an experiment. Normally I work one-on-one, or I go into institutions and do workshops. So this is an experiment to do sort of an open enrollment thing that's pretty contained, but all just really beautiful and valuable work for us to do. And this webinar is in part advertisement for that. And what I want to offer each and every one of you, and I'm going to double check that this is the right thing, and I can email it to you too, because I have your emails, is I'm not charging a ton for it, in part because this is a cohort 1, the pilot, but I'm giving you a huge discount if you register by the end of the month. So I want to make sure I have the right code, because if I don't have the right code, I will feel bad. Let me find, here we go. There's my coupon thingy. The name is, I couldn't remember if it was 20 or 22. So the promotion code is Flourish22. I will put that in the chat. So all caps, Flourish22. And so the price that I'm charging for the course is, I think, $4.97 Canadian, which is like $2 US. Not really, but also yes. And the Flourish 22 is $150 off. So because there is a difference between reading about, listening about, oh yeah, focusing on where I'm engaged and where I'm not engaged, that would totally be worth my while. Looking at my calendar and figuring out how to structure my time so that I know when I get to work on engagement, as opposed to looking at my calendar and all of my calendar, everything in my calendar represents an interruption to the work I'm here to do, which is what a lot of our calendars look like. And you can hear that and think it's a good idea, but it's in the practicing, it's in the reflecting, it's in the hearing it mirrored back to you by others that the actual work happens, and that the actual transformation happens from being a person who cares about this to being a person who does this, right? Who really focuses on well-being. And I think that that work is best done for adults in small groups where we reflect together. So that's my invitation to you. And you, I think, all have my email address, but if you do not, you can email me with questions here. And now for the last 10 minutes, I'll open it up to questions from you guys about the PERMA model, about individual things we talked about. Micro coaching, Jennifer, how do I do this? I'll put you on the hot seat. Are there questions? What I will do actually is stop recording